So here's a question I get a lot. Am I too old to learn to ride a motorcycle? This week on MCrider, we'll talk about you late bloomers. You might be late to the party, but at least you made it here. Hey, my name's Kevin and I release a weekly video here on MCrider focused on road skills and road strategy to help make you a better rider. So how old is too old to start riding a motorcycle? Let's look at it this week and I'll give you some of my thoughts on the subject. You know, my very first class in teaching the new rider course, I was co-teaching with a fellow instructor who's still a good friend of mine. We were both fresh out of getting our certification to teach the basic rider class, and they teamed us up together to teach our first class solo without an instructor by. I guess the thought was if we worked together, maybe between the two of us, we wouldn't mess the students up too bad. Well, the night before the class, we got a roster of students who were enrolled in the class for the following day. The roster has a name, the date of birth, and the driver's license number of the students. I'm looking over the roster and I see the birth date of one of the students. And if I remember it right, it said he was born in 1928. Well, I glanced over that date and thought in my head that he was born in 1982. And then, wait a minute, that said 1928. So I'm doing some quick math in my head trying to figure out how old this guy actually is. The whole time I'm thinking, man, it's got to be a typo. He couldn't have been born in 1928. This has got to be 1982. Well, the day of the class arrives and the students start filing in one by one, when in walks a guy who's carrying every bit of his life experience with him. For his age, he was in really great shape. I shook his hand, introduced myself, and welcomed him to the class. At the start of the class, we were all introducing ourselves and talking about our experience on motorcycles and what the students' experience may have been riding a motorcycle. This guy introduces himself and says he rode some as a kid, but the motorcycles that he rode on years ago had a floor shifter. And you may have heard of them called suicide shifters today. Well, he quit riding when he left for the Army in World War II and hadn't ridden since then, so he might be a little bit rusty. And I tell you, I was an instant fan of this guy, and he had all of my respect in the world for what he was attempting to do. I did pull him aside during the class at one point and made sure he was aware of the risk that he was taking. He was, but he still wanted to give it a go. Well, in the end, he didn't make it through the class. He removed himself once we got out to the range a few hours later, stating that the early riding exercises were just too taxing for him. So he went his way and I never heard from him again. I've always imagined this guy's out training for some bodybuilding contest, or he's base jumping off the side of a mountain or something. But to answer the question posed early on in this video, yeah, you might be too old to learn to ride a motorcycle, but you have to make that decision. Answering the question of how old is too old to learn to ride is like answering the question of how big is a building. Well, they're all different sizes, so it's impossible to answer. As far as riding, are you in good shape? Are you healthy? Are you still open to learning? The list is endless, and only you know if this is something that you're still up for. And just like my World War II buddy, he saw it was too much for him, and off he went into the sunset. So there is no easy answer to that question, but I feel pretty confident in saying if you've actually been out on patrol looking for Hitler, you might have passed your prime riding days up a few years ago. But I've seen both younger people and experienced people be very successful in learning to ride a motorcycle. There are some differences in the way that a younger person learns and a more experienced person learns, and we'll discuss those in this video. One of the biggest areas is in the frustration level. You know, a young child, to put it real bluntly, is not very good at anything. A child's glad to be able to tie their own shoes and to pour their own milk without spilling it all over the counter, and small improvements are noticed and celebrated. As an adult, you've hopefully accomplished a few things in your life. You've got a job that you're good at, you know how to run a household, You can drive a car, you can make your own dinner, but when it comes to learning a totally new skill, in a lot of ways, you're like that young child. Now, there's some coordination when it comes to riding a motorcycle, and no matter how good you are at daily life, it's a brand new skill set. Your clutch hand has to do one thing while your throttle hand does another, and all at the same time, your left foot has to select the proper gear. You have to get used to using the rear brakes and the front brakes in coordination without throwing yourself over the handlebars. Add to that, you've fallen down a few times in life and you realize you don't get up as quick as you used to, so you understand the potential risk, and that also affects your ability to grow as a rider. So not being able to master riding quickly is frustrating for many experienced learners. You've accomplished other things and you carry that into learning to ride a motorcycle. Well, my word of advice is to give yourself room to make mistakes and to grow as a rider. Realize that you will not master this in one riding session. It's going to take some time. If you see an experienced rider riding, doing U-turns or figure eights in a parking lot, realize that they've built up to that skill. It takes a lot of dedicated hours and practice to become a highly proficient rider. But every rider started somewhere and developed those skills along the way. You see, good riders are developed, they're not born. As a new rider, you're developing two separate systems at the same time. You're developing your mental capacity, like where are all the controls located? How does that transmission work again? Why is there a front brake and a rear brake on a motorcycle when my car just has brakes? And how do I move this two-wheeled machine through traffic without getting myself in a bad situation? At the same time, you're developing your physical capacity. You're manipulating the clutch, the throttle, brakes, and handlebars to get the motorcycle to go where you want it to go. You're understanding the balance and how your input has a direct effect on how the motorcycle handles and what it does. Over time, what requires mental capacity as a new rider to accomplish, like shifting through the gears, can eventually be accomplished without much direct thought. But it takes time. So as an experienced learner, give yourself that time. Understand that you will not learn to ride a motorcycle by watching MCrider or any other video trainer out there. You only learn by doing, and the best place to begin that learning is in a new rider class. I don't care if you've ridden in the past and you're getting back into it, take a new rider class. Just know, especially if you're self-taught in the past to ride, that you have some bad habits and some things that you can be improved upon. So start with a class and then build up from there. You know, one of the misconceptions I see all the time is a rider takes a new rider class. He does okay in the class and they say to themselves, man, I got this thing figured out. I'm a good rider. At the end of a new rider class, I always told my students, congratulations, you're now qualified to ride a 250cc motorcycle on a closed parking lot with absolutely no threat of traffic at speeds up to, but not to exceed 20 miles per hour. Now show me a road between here and your house that's 20 miles per hour. The point being that a new rider class is just the beginning. There's still so much to learn on a motorcycle, and I'm still trying to learn things on a motorcycle and to get better riding on two wheels. Even Valentino Rossi has still got a riding coach. That's part of the reason why MCrider exists, is because I saw the hole that many riders with a license still had in their riding abilities. This is true for American riders or our European friends as well. It doesn't matter what the standards are to get your license, you can still grow as a rider. Don't take pride in the fact that you have your license to ride a motorcycle. Take pride that you're now free to continue to learn and to develop as a rider. The forums in the field guide offer an excellent resource for the new rider and the experienced rider alike. The forums are practically an encyclopedia of rider knowledge with some of the most experienced riders in the world who are willing to share their knowledge. So if you're looking in the mirror and you're asking yourself that question, am I too old to do this? Only you really know the answer to that. But I can tell you that I've seen other learners, experienced learners, become excellent riders. And even though they were late to the party, they were at the party nonetheless. So to sum it up, get training. Give yourself time to learn a new skill and continue to grow as a rider. And welcome to one of the greatest modes of transportation ever invented by mankind, riding a motorcycle. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road.